The Extraordinary Adventures of Mr. Benn, based on the TV series by David McKee, read by Simon Flynn. Caveman. Festive Road was usually very quiet, but on this morning the street was crowded with traffic. At number 52, Mr. Benn looked out of his window. "What's going on?" he asked a man. "The main road is being repaired, and it's the rush hour," said the man. "All the traffic has to come this way." Mr. Benn walked back inside and sat down to have a look at the television. He watched a film about cavemen. It said that cavemen lived a long time ago in caves. They dressed in furs and worked with tools made out of stone. Mr. Benn was very interested, but the traffic outside was so noisy that he could not really hear the television. "I must get away from all this noise," he said. And he thought about the special costume shop that he knew, the shop where adventures could start. "That's the place to go," he smiled. Mr. Benn was soon in the lane with the shop. He paused for a moment outside, then went in. He looked at all the costumes. Something away from cars, he thought. As if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared. "Good morning, sir," he said. "Good morning," said Mr. Benn. "Is this a caveman's outfit?" "Yes," said the shopkeeper. "They used to live in caves, you know." "They didn't have any cars either," said Mr. Benn. "Do you think I might try it on?" He took the costume into the changing room and quickly changed. He smiled at the furry Mr. Benn in the mirror and then went through the door that could lead to an adventure. On the other side of the door, everything was dark. Mr. Benn could see a light ahead and walked towards it. As it became lighter, he found himself walking out of a cave, and in front of him there were other caves and lots of people dressed in furs. Mr. Benn went over to a patch of grass and lay down. He closed his eyes and thought about how peaceful it was. The sun was shining. "I wonder why the cave people don't lie out here. It's lovely," he thought. It wasn't very long before he knew why. From a long way off came a rumbling noise. At the same time, the cave people started to shout. In the distance was a great cloud of dust coming closer and closer. The cavemen were shouting, "Look out!" and "Get out of the way!" and "Run for it!" Mr. Benn jumped to his feet and raced back to the caves, just as a huge animal thundered past. "Golly," said Mr. Benn. "What was that?" "A dinosaur," said the man. "Every morning the dinosaurs rush past here on their way to get the best feeding places. And every evening they race back to get the best places to sleep." Suddenly there was a crash and the dinosaurs screeched to a halt. Some of them had fallen over, blocking the road. "That's always happening," said the man. "They're so impatient, no manners at all." And with that, the dinosaurs picked themselves up and rushed off again. The cave people settled down to their supper. Mr. Benn asked, "Why do you stay here? There must be other places to live, away from the dinosaurs." "Not with caves," said the man, "and we need caves to live in." When the meal was over, Mr. Benn settled down under a pile of furs for the night. The next morning when Mr. Benn woke up, he saw some men trying to move a dinosaur. "Can I help?" he asked. "This often happens," explained the man. "An animal just parks here to sleep and blocks the entrance of a cave. Help us push it out the way, will you?" So Mr. Benn got behind the dinosaur and they pushed and heaved it out of the way. When Mr. Benn was having his breakfast, he heard the rumbling noise again, and sure enough, the animals went rushing past, this time in the opposite direction. When all the dinosaurs had gone, Mr. Benn asked if he could go for a walk to get away from the dust. "Yes, we'll all go," said the others. "You have to be careful crossing the dinosaur road. The dinosaurs don't mean any harm, but if one does bump into you, it can be quite nasty." They looked first one way, then the other, and a large cloud of dust was approaching. They waited until the dinosaur had passed. This time, when they looked, the road was clear, so they crossed. But they kept looking each way in case a dinosaur should suddenly appear, but none did. As they walked on, the countryside became greener. The trees and streams and the air was fresh. Children played freely and everybody was much happier. "This is where we would really like to live," said one of the men. "Why don't you?" said Mr. Benn. "Because there are no caves, silly," the man laughed. "Build some. Or at least something that will do instead," said Mr. Benn. "I'll show you how to build huts with these stones." Mr. Benn showed them how to place the stones one on top of the other. As soon as the cave people saw how it was done, they started to build several huts. When the walls were finished, Mr. Benn took them into the woods to get some branches for the roofs. Next they cut pieces of turf from the ground. Then they laid the turf on the branches. Lo and behold, the huts were complete. The people were very pleased. "From now on, we can live here," they agreed. A man appeared beside Mr. Benn. "Come and look inside this hut, sir," he said. Just then, Mr. Benn heard a noise in the distance. The cave people were standing on top of a hill. They were watching the dinosaurs rush hour again. After the dinosaur had gone, Mr. Benn went into the hut, and just as he expected, he found himself back in the changing room of the shop. Mr. Benn returned the outfit to the shopkeeper and said, "Thank you very much." "Thank you, sir," said the shopkeeper. "We look forward to seeing you again." As Mr. Benn waved goodbye from the door, he said, "I look forward to seeing you again too." Mr. Benn walked back along Festive Road, which was still filled with cars and lorries. Somehow they seemed different now, thought Mr. Benn, and for a moment he imagined that they looked like dinosaurs. At his gate, Mr. Benn realised that he was holding something in his hand. It was a stone hammer. "I wonder how long I've been holding that," he thought. "I'll keep it. It's just what I need to help me remember."